Well, hello everybody, and still another lecture, the next lecture. This one is on the art, the Greek art of the Hellenistic period. The Hellenistic period as opposed to Hellenic period. Hellenic, which is classical art. Istic is a pejorative suffix, and it will be used by modern art historians who will actually, I think the term originated perhaps in the 19th century when the art of later Greece was examined and found to be quite different from the art of the classical Greece. Greece of particularly the middle of the 5th century and to an extent into the 4th century. So the term was then devised to express that it was still an offshoot of Hellenic art, but not quite Hellenic. It's kind of Hellenic, and thus Hellenistic. The period technically begins at the death of Alexander the Great in 323, when he was 33 years old, and again, technically continues to 31 BC to the Battle of Actium, whereby Augustus, well at that time still Octavian, became master of Egypt and thus defeated the last Hellenistic kingdom of Cleopatra, of Antony and Cleopatra, in fact. But in truth, it really continued. It continued long into the Roman Empire, because the Romans, having conquered Greece in the 2nd century BC, as I perhaps mentioned earlier, were so much conquered by Greece intellectually, aesthetically, that they continue the same forms of art, and they very often hired Greek artists, Greek architects to do what they wished to be done, which was essentially very derivative from Greek art, and that's what Romans wanted in their homes, in their public spaces, in their baths, in fact, and in their forums. Alexander the Great, son of Philip II of Macedonia, let's see, was was one of those mavericks, those extraordinary people in history whose trajectory is rather difficult to understand as
trajectory,
not
I'm
trajectory.
Sorry. No,
okay.
because I thought you were saying tragic story.
Oh, I see. Trajectory.
No, that's the only reason.
Thank
because
you.
at first
Perfect.
I was like, what's his tragic story?
Well, his tragic story. Well, he died at 33.
Yes.
But then again, it's like Achilles.
Right.
Do you want to live on to your old days and then not be remembered, or do you want to be a phoenix bird, sort of burn in your glory and then be forever remembered? But he's another Achilles, no question about it. And he in fact thought himself another Achilles. He had anywhere he traveled, Homer was always with him, and don't know about Odyssey, but Iliad definitely, because he without question saw himself as an Achilles, and well, he was in fact. His father, Philip of Macedonia, Philip II, ultimately put an end to all the strife between various Greek city-states. You remember that at the end of the 4th century, the Peloponnesian Wars, as a result of which Sparta conquered Athens, then Sparta, in its own turn, was conquered by Thebes, but that again didn't last. So ultimately, as I said, Alexander of Macedonia will conquer all. His son went further still. Interestingly, there's there was a custom in Macedonia that a boy may not, a young man may not sit, may not recline at a symposium, at a formal dinner, unless he had killed a wild Macedonian boar. Well, Alexander had done so by the age of 16. And there's also another tradition. There was a belt, a specific belt, that one could wear once one killed one's enemy, and Alexander, of course, had done that as well. He inherited the entire Greece. He was very lenient towards the city-state because essentially he really wasn't that interested in the city-states. He was interested in Persia. That's what he was interested in. He wished to revenge the Greeks upon the Persians, and as a result, in 334, he crosses over into Asia Minor, today's Turkey, and in the year 333 BC, right here. I mean, he had previous engagements with the enemy as well, but the very famous battle is the Battle of Issus, and it is commemorated in this. Well, this one is a mosaic, but it was presumably at first painted by one Philoxenus of Eretria, and then the Romans made a mosaic out of it, and the painting shows this major battle of Alexander against Darius III, and this, in fact, shows us that that the Greeks just knew all the nuances of painting, of perspective, of being able to depict light, be able to model in depth. All of that they could do, because here we see Alexander. Unfortunately, the rest of it is missing. Here's this Alexander, unstoppable, utterly heroic, very Byronial, who advances against Darius. Darius is here in his war chariot, horrified, in fact, seeing Alexander pierce one of Darius's lieutenants through with his spear, as he dies in this extremely dramatic pose. I mean, all of this is already tending towards Hellenistic, the drama, the action, the sort of the bravado. All of that will be part of Hellenistic, as opposed to the classical harmony, resonance, balance, this sort of thing. Yes, Sasha is here, as always.
Hi. Do you have a preference for Hellenistic versus Hellenic?
They're so different.
Right, but do you?
I know it used to be very popular to kind of poo-poo Hellenistic, because of course it lost the classical harmonies. But then the Hellenistic, it's sort of, do we have a preference for Renaissance or Baroque? It's the same thing. Do you, I don't know, do you prefer Donatello, say, or Bernini? It's hard to answer because they're so different. Even Michelangelo's David still belongs very much to Renaissance, but of course Bernini's David is entirely Baroque. It's all emotion, it's all passion, it's all movement. And so Hellenistic is essentially Greek Baroque.
I see.
And they introduce the psychological insight, they introduce the characteristic insight, they introduce all these very human imperfections.
I see.
Which, of course, to the lovers of classical perfection, appears untoward.
Got it. Thank you.
Yes, but I suppose, I mean, in this case, there's so much incredible statuary from Hellenistic period.
Mm-hmm.
So beautiful. So it's, I mean, you remember, we'll look at them actually, the Hellenistic ruler and the boxer.
Oh my God.
In the Palazzo Massimo.
So the boxer counts as Hellenistic?
Oh, completely.
Oh yeah, I prefer Hellenistic.
Oh, you do?
Oh,
Yeah.
that's easy. If it's the if the boxer falls into Hellenistic, then I'm in that camp.
Yeah. Oh no.
If I have to
Classical art would never show so much pain, so much suffering, so much emotion. Never.
What about the Farnese Hercules?
Also Hellenistic.
Oh yeah, no. Whereas
also
Apollo of
Hellenistic.
Belvedere is Hellenic.
It's actually yes. It's. I mean, you know, it's a copy.
What about Laocoon?
Laocoon is Hellenistic.
Yeah, no, Hellenistic. That's
Okay.
easy. Okay.
All right. So you know.
Or at least I know what camp I'm in.
Okay. All right. So as I said, we don't exactly know that it's a copy of a painting, but we always hope for it. We also, when we hear about great painters of antiquity, of whom we have absolutely nothing, we kind of imagine that perhaps we are heirs to some of their art, even if it is a copy. And that goes for the painting and for sculpture. Certainly for painting, because we have no painting at all. We do have sculpture, some, but no painting. This is how it is reconstructed. And here you see Alexander piercing the lieutenant, and lieutenant is slipping off his horse, while Darius is horrified by what he sees, as well as other Persians, and the entire action takes place on one ground level, and you can see the reflection of this Persian in his mirror, in terms of the ability to paint reflections of light, and also the reflection of light on the horse's back, and of course all the foreshortening that you see in this mosaic is quite remarkable. And here you can see better, you can see the reflection better, you can see the expression of horror on the face of Darius. His driver takes the horses out of the field. He will escape. He will, however, later be murdered by his own retinue. Here you can see Alexander piercing the lieutenant. The horses are portrayed spectacularly. There it is. And there's Darius, and here's Alexander. And Alexander on his armor, on his breastplate, there's a writhing hair of Medusa portrayed, as was a custom, and in a way it's sort of it rather corresponds to the tussle of this very romantic hair of Alexander himself. And it was found in the villa of the Faun in Pompeii, and that villa was built sometime in the 2nd century BC, and that's when the mosaic must have been created as well. Okay, so after Alexander's victory, let's look back at the map. After Alexander's victories, which were lightning-like, he then came to Babylon, and in Babylon he died. And after his death, there were no plans to continue. It's one thing to conquer very, very extensive territories, and quite another situation when you have to rule them. And none of that was put in place. So there was a prolonged strife between Alexander's generals, as a result of which his empire was divided into sort of 3 major parts, and then another 2 smaller parts. So ultimately the Asian part will be a separate kingdom, Egypt will be a separate kingdom, and Greece and Macedonia will be a separate kingdom. And then as time went on, there'll be also a separate kingdom here of Pergamum, and another separate kingdom of Bactria. So we will be looking at the art of these kingdoms. These were national states. They not only they were kingdoms with a tyrant, with an autocrat, not necessarily a tyrant in our understanding, but an autocrat in place. Also, as these movements of population happen, it so happened that obviously thousands of Greeks went east, thousands of Easterners came west, and Alexander in fact was very anxious to promote the policy of admixture. He himself took a Persian wife, and in addition to, of course, to other wives and boys too, yes.
He had two main wives. One was Roxanne, and one was the daughter of Darius.
Okay.
And he had two main male lovers, one of whom he considered to be the Patroclus to his Achilles, who was his boyhood friend from just from childhood.
Okay.
And the other one was a Persian boy who had originally been the lover of Darius.
Interesting. So he took everything Darius had, huh?
Well, he took the daughter and the lover.
And his lover. Okay.
And for himself, he had Roxanne and.
But didn't he kill one of his closest companions? Was he the lover as well? Yeah, he was the lover.
Yeah.
Yeah, in a drunken rage to which he was prone. So while the city-states were very jealous of their borders, they were very jealous of homogeneity within the city-states. It would be extremely difficult, for instance, to become a citizen of Athens. There were very few were allowed, and under special dispensations, money, of course, being one of the dispensations. But nevertheless, the city-states were very inward-looking. This is a completely different culture now. This is the culture like ours, in a way. This is a very multicultural world where everyone mixes with everyone else. There are practically no borders. It's the European Union we have here. And of course the great deal of Greek influence went east, the great deal of Eastern influences went west, and as such we have the Hellenistic artistic forms because of this admixture. Here we will be, let's see. We will first look at the place called Pergamum right here, or sometimes it's spelled Pergamon, M-O-N, as opposed to M-U-M. I mean, it's all transliteration anyway. And it was the capital of the kingdom of Pergamum right here. You see, kingdom of the Seleucids. Seleucid was one of the Alexander's generals, and then the Ptolemies in Egypt will be kingdom of the Ptolemies, right there in Egypt, and this is the kingdom of the Pergamum. One of the great plans, in fact, the plan of the Pergamum itself was fascinating because in itself already it embodied the Hellenistic aspirations. The city itself became an architectural drama. Here we'll look. The city was built on a hill. They did not choose a plain plateau somewhere to build the city. They wanted that elevation. So as a result, it had a very dramatic plan, not the Hippodamian plan, which is essentially a Greek plan. Hippodamus of Miletus was the originator of today's urban planning, and certainly the inspiration for the Roman city planning. and his was a Greek plan that was followed by Rome. Not by Rome, the city of Rome, but the Romans as they established new colonies and new cities. This, however, was very different. You see, it sits on a hill, and the very first, on the very sort of first level, there was the agora, and which is a marketplace, Greek marketplace, and part of the agora was the colonnade, the store, as you call it, right here. All of this is the beautiful store, the colonnaded pavilions, where one could have a shop, one could have an office building, sort of a marketplace, essentially. Same as the agora, but still a different, a bit of a different thing. Then on the next level sat the great altar, which we will examine in detail right here. And still higher was a temple of Athena with a store around it. Every time you see this architectural structure with two arms, very colonnaded, it's called a store. So from the temple of Athena there was a road to the library, and the Pergamese library, in fact, was tremendous and was on par with Alexandrian library. Alexandrian library was still greater, but the Pergamese didn't think so. Well, it was still a remarkable library. And then higher up, in fact, was later on Trajan built a temple for himself. That's in the early 2nd century, and then Hadrian will also build more structures up there. Otherwise, the arsenal was kept there, and some barracks, soldiers' barracks, were kept on the very top. So here's the plan. You see, there's the agora, first level, with the store, and we'll talk separately about the theater. The theater was very dramatic. I mean, everything about that place was very dramatic. Then one went up, the great altar, right here, second level. Then the temple of Athena and the library, and then the temple of Zeus and Trajan. As I said, that was built later. And on the very, very highest levels, there was an arsenal, barracks, and some of the palaces. So when you look on this picture, you can see how the whole thing was just up, 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 up. And as I said, creating this architectural theater in itself. The dramatic theater was spectacular drama. The views were remarkable, and it was also very important to have remarkable views from the buildings themselves as well. So it was the perspective views were breathtaking, still are. Let's see, what do we have here? Not much is left today. This is Temple of Trajan in the Pergamum. Here's another reconstruction. Here you can see these buildings that sort of look like the electrical station today. But these were the stores. Then the altar. You see the smoke going up from the altar, and then Temple of Athena, Temple of Zeus, the library behind there. So it required climbing. Yes, a great deal of climbing. Still more now from the as the bird flies. There's our altar, and we'll be looking at the altar specifically. We'll also take a peek at the theater, because it's the steepest, most vertiginous theater in the world. I don't know how people don't just fall down, but there it is. Acropolis of the Pergamon. It must have been a spectacular, absolutely amazing sight. As you can see here, the altar itself is in the middle of another store, so to speak. that surrounds it, and then a flight of stairs goes up to the altar. And that's the same picture. Look, it's bigger in fact, and it is colored. And this is still another reconstruction of what the altar may have looked like in real life, with people everywhere. This is the store that I was telling you about. Then behind the first,
Wow.
I know, right?
Yeah, wow.
Behind the first row of a eunuch, they look like a eunuch columns. Then behind there is the altar itself, where the sacrifices are made, and then another row of columns. As you see, the lower part of the altar, the lower frieze, so to speak, is all colored. Did they think of the Parthenon when they were doing this base of the altar? Perhaps. It's very different from the Parthenon, and for one thing, it's on the level of one's eye. It's considerably larger, and we'll look at it. German archaeologists did dug in that area. So in Berlin, in the Berlin Museum, in Museum Island, part of the front, the western part, the front with the arms, is reconstructed in fact. And here it is. This is the reconstruction, and it is, yes, indeed, the Ionic order. The reconstruction of the Pergamon altar, and you see this is what the archaeologists found of the sculpture. So part of it they included on the reconstruction itself, and others are on the walls around the rooms. I think it has been under renovation now for about 4 years.
Yeah.
They brought bits and pieces to the Metropolitan, remember? Oh, that's right, of course. You did the presentation for that at the Met. And a couple of years ago? No, more now, right?
2016.
Oh my God, time flies. 4 years ago. 4 years ago. And feels like yesterday. So the Attalids, a lot of names of the Pergamon rulers were the Attalids. So made to embellish, of course, the city. It 20-foot high podium, and approached from the back and entered up the stairs. A unique colonnade with projecting wings. Relief shows battle of gods, led by a battle of gods against the giants, which was one of the favorite themes of the Greeks to depict, and we have that theme on the Parthenon as well. And actually, they definitely looked at the Parthenon, and we will see why. Shows victory over barbarians. In the 3rd century BC, the Gauls invaded Pergamon, but were repulsed by the king, and it's possible that this is one of the reasons for the battle. But also, as we talked about in the classical lecture, Greeks had these favorite themes, such as the Gigantomachia or Centauromachia, Amazonamachia, the fights of Greeks against barbarians, and that also very much invoked the desire for a rational mind to control irrational emotions, because the Greeks obviously imagined themselves as rational, and everybody else is barbarian. So this is another reason, but it's, yes, of course, King Attalus, the first turning back the Gauls. Most extensive representation attempted by the Greeks, 400 feet long, 100 over life-size figures, giants so big, only see torsos. Let's look at it. This is also in the same room. There's a model of it, so you can see it all around, and the altar would be in the middle. And then acroteria, same as in classical Greek art, the sculpture on top of the roof. And the and these dramatic, these stunning figures actually climb up the stairs. As you walk up the stairs, they climb right next to you, right here, as you see. And they turn, they twist, right? They writhe. Their faces are distorted with emotion. Completely Hellenistic approach. Because again, remember, our Hellenic or classical sculpture is balance, tranquility, never show emotion. Very different here. Here you see them climbing up the steps, grabbing each other by the hair, twisting, falling, yelling, mouths open, hair disheveled. Some of the giants have these enormous snake tails, and the battle goes on, the bashing, the pulling, the pushing. Some of the most famous parts of the battle are, of course, Zeus and Athena. So here is a very muscular, very masculine and very muscular torso of Zeus himself as he is fighting the giants. Some of the pubic hair shows, but otherwise he's covered with wet drapery, which Phidias, of course, invented, and this wet drapery is so deeply carved. The effect of light and shadow, the effect of deep carving as the light falls on it is extremely dramatic, and as you see, the drapery itself goes in swirls and zigzags, and it goes around his legs and around his torso and envelops him dramatically as he fights, and sort of shows his extraordinary physique. In the Parthenon, you remember my favorite centaur, the one who is defeating, in fact, a Greek warrior. No, my favorite is the Greek warrior, in fact, as he's defeating the centaur. Well, we don't know yet who defeats whom. They sort of grab each other and pull and push one another by the hair. But the spectacular torso, and we talked about the fact how it probably is difficult to fight while posing this beautiful physique, but Zeus, as you see, is doing the same thing. So obviously they did know about the Parthenon sculptures, these sculptures. Not only that, but here it can be compared to the contest on the west pediment of Zeus and Athena. There's Zeus here, and there's Zeus there. Quite similar, you see, except under a different angle. His musculature is more pronounced in the Pergamon altar. And the same with Athena. Look, there's our Athena again from the west pediment, and here's our Athena from Pergamon, which again may have been taken from, let's see, may also, but you see, we don't know exactly what the east pediment looked like, so it's a reconstruction, but she certainly does look like the Athena from the west pediment. And let's see, grabbing hair as Nike flies to crown Element 8, goddess of earth, to help her son, swirling drapery. Here, what they're talking about here is, you see the goddess Nike, who is the goddess of victory. She's winged, and she's crowning Athena with the crown of victory. Meanwhile, here is this spectacular looking Titan who who's being defeated by Athena. His legs also turned into snake tails, and Titans were children of the earth, the goddess Gaia. That's where I get our geometry, and here is the goddess. Her brow is frowned in furrowed. Thank you. In the expression of tragedy, she's trying to help her son, and in fact, every time the son touches her or she is able to touch him, new energy flows into him, and then Athena has a harder task.
That is quite tragic.
I know. I know.
Sorry, I interrupted you.
No, that's okay. But ultimately, well, you know the Titans will be defeated and will then go and live in the bosom of the earth. Let's see, here's our Pergamon. Okay, and here, so there's the Pergamon. This is a theater, actually. This is the theater. It's kind of washed out on this picture. But here it is. And look how precipitous it is. It must be, I've never been there, but it must be very dizzying to stand in front of somewhere here and look down. There's the theater. It was enormous, the cavea itself. The width is 80 meters. The orchestra width right here is 21 meters. Capacity for 10,000 people, and the earliest date is 225 BC. Here is the picture. Someone did us a favor and in fact took a picture standing on top of the theater, right here. Oof. Yes, right. And inside the altar is a relief of Hercules. Actually, we'll look at another statue, the freestanding statue of Hercules. Here he is resting as he is after one of his 12 labors, resting on his the Herculean, the bat, his what would you call
club.
it? Club, yeah,
Club.
His club right there. And again, in commemoration of that victory of Attalus the First against the Gauls, we have well, 2 copies, but the copies still are extraordinary, of presumably original bronze sculptures. And one is the dying trumpeter. Here we see him. This is just to show you that it is a freestanding or free-sitting sculpture in the round. But with this particular sculpture, one certainly is meant to look at it from the front, not really go around. There are certain sculptures that one is meant to have multiple viewpoints of it, but not in this. And the goal is in fact depicted as somebody worth a great deal of respect. Again, that same principle that unless your foe is worthy, there's not much glory to the victory. He is dying. He is not dead yet. He is sitting on his broken shield and the trumpet. His unruly hair. He has this shock of hair that is very expressive, and his torque, his gold torque around his neck, identifies him as a Gaul. Mustache. We do not know. It's possible that he was a leader, one of the leaders, because he has the trumpet, or he was again a trumpeter. He is supporting himself, not willing to die, and not willing to die ignominiously, rather willing to die because when, as somebody says, when death is all that's left, it matters. It matters how one dies. Of course, the the theme, the motif of the dying warrior comes from the Aegina, from from the temple, the archaic temple that we saw before, and you remember the archaic dying warrior, and well, the early archaic dying warrior and the later archaic dying warrior, and now you have truly the real thing. These archaic warriors, as you remember, still have the little smile. They unquestionably also die nobly, but this warrior is more schematic than this one, more realistic. And here you have realism at its height, with the tragedy, with the expression of realization, the psychological realization of imminent death, and with also the nobility of spirit. All of it is in the dying Gaul. Another statue also from the same period, and very possibly that they belong actually to one not series, but to one group of statues, because it appears that this was done at the same time in the same place, and it's called Ludovisi Gaul. Well, but our dying warrior is also Ludovisi. It was a villa that belonged to the Ludovisi family in Italy, in Rome, and it was unearthed there in the 16th century, and that's why this is also called the Ludovisi Gaul. And what it shows us, a Gaul and his wife, yes, may have been part of the sculptural group together with the dying Gaul, and both of them are marble copies of the Greek originals. Again, Romans were so swayed, so swept off their feet by Greek art that workshops, in fact, were established all over the Greek world and in Rome itself to copy the original Greek bronzes, marbles, and very often, as a result, the bronzes are gone, the originals are gone, but the copies remain. He does not wish to be taken prisoner. He certainly doesn't wish for his wife to be taken prisoner, because he knows very well that she would just become a sexual slave. And it seems by the clothes she wears that she must have belonged to the upper nobility of their society, in which case, of course, the husband would also be the leader. So she already is dead, and with his left hand, with his left arm, left hand, he is holding her up, not letting her go, while committing suicide. Here's another, a much more dramatic, in fact, view here of the picture, right here. I mean, look at this incredible composition. I mean, this is absolutely extraordinary. This sort of the X shape, the heaving of this tremendous torso. You can count every rib, the drama of the movement. Again, just as with our Greek, fighting with the centaur. Does one take this particular attitude after killing of one's wife, or while trying to kill oneself? We don't know. But you know what? We don't care either, because this is brilliant, this is remarkable, this is so dramatic, this is so beautiful. We're not going to worry about realities. We just, what the sculptor conveyed better than he ever could is the theater and the tragedy of the moment. Again, does one kill oneself by plunging a knife into a shoulder bone? I don't know. But just look at his cape flying behind him, and he's looking around as if somebody is approaching to take them both prisoner, and he wishes to finish it. just an amazing piece of art. And here, Sasha, there's your Farnese Hercules. The reason he's called Farnese because he was in the collection, the Farnese collections, and he lives today in Naples in the spectacular archaeological museum. He is, what is he, 10 feet tall? 12? He's enormous.
He's big.
Yes, he is enormous. I forgot to write it down. Now, 4th century, always a question. 4th century, 3rd century. Also, even with the Hellenistic period, it didn't just happen overnight. I mean, here Alexander dies and the Hellenistic period happens. Obviously, nothing happens like that. Like that. And historical periods, as they progress, do not divide themselves by borders of dates. So the Hellenistic period itself is sort of divided in the early period, in the early 4th century. Obviously, there's still a great deal of classicism, and then towards the middle, I don't know, 250 to 150 perhaps, BC, of course. There we have the real drama, the real Baroque, Hellenistic mood. And then you see in the 2nd century, around the middle of the 2nd century, the Romans conquered Greece, and then it was at that time that the Romans fell in love with everything Greece. So there was a tendency almost back to classicism, because the Romans, of course, wanted everything. They conquered everything in one fell swoop. So they wanted Hellenistic, they wanted classical, they wanted it all, and maybe even archaic. So the production began. So it's difficult to tell, because marble, of course, the carbon 14 cannot be used in dating marble, and also the skills of artists were so tremendous at this point that it's hard to tell by style whether it was done in the 4th, the 3rd, I don't know, maybe even the 1st century AD, because these workshops continued, and their skill was tremendous in the really good ones. So they even feel that it's by Lysippus. Lysippus, who lived as Praxiteles did in the 4th century BC. And Lysippus had certain characteristics. He certainly loved heroic nudes and muscular nudes, but this one is really enormous. And we always have this tendency, as I said, to assign truly tremendous pieces to tremendous people and tremendous artists. So we don't know. It was when it was found again in the 16th century. It elicited a great deal of admiration, and many came to look at it. This is the 16th century engraving by Henry Goltzius, and he's showing us two onlookers, two travelers who look at Hercules, just to give us a scale of how really large he is. So that's the Hercules that we saw in the Pergamese altar. There is a similar one. There was a relief, and here is the sculpture in the round. Sashka, perhaps turn the lights perhaps towards me. Maybe then one can see, because it's getting darker. Let's see if that works. Yeah? No? Okay, we'll see.
Sure.
Well, we'll try.
I don't want it to hurt your eyes.
No, it's okay. It's alright. Yeah.
The light's good, by the way, on the camera.
That looks alright? Okay.
Yeah, looks great.
Wonderful. Okay. Because some people complain that they can't see my expressions either. So, he is, as I said, he's enormous. He is leaning on his club. Thank
Sorry.
you.
Yeah.
Yeah. He's leaning on his club, and in the back, in the back, in his hand, he's holding the apples of the Hesperides that he had just finished this this task, one of the 12 tasks that he had to do, and he is resting. He's extremely tired. He had just been holding the skies in lieu of Atlas, and Athena fortunately saved him from Atlas's wiles, because Atlas wanted for Hercules just to continue holding the sky so Atlas could run away with the apples that only he could obtain. So he is very, very tired and is resting, and we see it. We see the fatigue in all his enormous, fantastical muscles. There's no question that at the moment's notice, these muscles would be back would be back functioning if needed. But right now, the fatigue is very evident. So, which is why it is really Hellenistic. Let's see, where are we going now? We're going here. We're going to the place called Halicarnassus. Halicarnassus, right here, in the northwestern part of contemporary Turkey. And there was a little kingdom of its own. Did I spell it right?
Halicarnassus.
Halicarnassus.
Yeah.
Let's see, this thing is spelled.
It's with an N.
Halicarnassus. Ah,
Or is it with an M? Is it with an M?
I don't know. We'll have to check it out.
We'll have to check it out.
Okay. And
If it's mistaken, then it will be duly
correct.
fixed in the description section of this video. Click the See More section.
Absolutely. And there, in this small kingdom that was carved by another family of Hellenistic rulers, and a husband and wife built themselves a spectacular mausoleum, which was in fact named one of the 7 wonders of the world. Nothing of the mausoleum remains, unfortunately, today, because later on it was essentially used as a stone quarry, as these things as it so often happens.
Is there even a footprint?
There are. Let's see. Do I have a? No, not sure. Well, I mean, there are. Yes, they excavate.
I see. Okay.
They do excavate.
Okay.
It's the tomb of Mausolus, and his wife Artemisia of Caria was built sometime in the middle of the 4th century BC, and these rulers were entirely Hellenophiles. They loved everything Greek, and they loved Greek culture, and as a result, they very much imbibed Greek culture and wanted to emulate it. Present Bodrum, Turkey. That's, I think, where Binur lives. Binur's brother lives in Bodrum, Turkey. We need to go visit. So he was a satrap of Achaemenid Empire, but he really he became very much a ruler in his own right. And his sister wife, Artemisia, as was often accustomed, certainly in Egypt and now here as well. It was designed, we know the name of the designer. Elevated tomb structure is derived from the neighboring tombs of Lycia, a territory that Mausolus invaded and annexed and made part of his little kingdom as well. So these are all reconstructions of what the mausoleum may have looked like. We have descriptions from travelers, we have descriptions from Greek historians, and yet, as we know, there's nothing like an eye, much. So from descriptions we try to reconstruct, but we don't exactly know what it looks like. We do have the chariot, and both Mausolus and Artemisia. Let's see. Here is another variant of the same structure. It may have been sort of a step structure, a terraced structure with many sculptures, either in relief or sculptures in the round. But we don't know. But there was definitely a chariot up on top because we have it. Here is the chariot, and we have Mausolus and Artemisia, and we have the horses too.
He's handsome.
Yes, long hair.
He actually has a personality in the sculpture.
Right.
I mean, he looks like a person.
Yeah.
Huh.
These must be. I wonder. I should look it up. I haven't looked it up in a while. They must be copies as well. They wouldn't. Would they ever put marble up on top of the? They would put bronze, not marble. But well, this is what we have, and both the drapery is very dramatic, and the drapery is consistent of Mausolus and Artemisia. The drapery swirls in different direction. Here it goes in one swirl, and here, of course, around the bodies, it stops the movement of the drapery from the bottom. It's not a continuous flow, and as you see, this is middle of the 4th century. So there's still a lot of, in fact, classicism. As I said, the Hellenistic period also was divided into transitional period. This is obviously a transitional period, not yet fully pledged Hellenistic Baroque. But they both are in the chariot together. It's a ceremonial. It's a ceremonial ride. They're not. This is not the race. They're not racing. It's a ceremonial ride where they show themselves to the people, where they perhaps throw the money to the crowd, where they show themselves almost godlike. And it must have seemed like, well, it was very difficult to see them, of course, on top of the mausoleum. But there they were much closer to gods, and they certainly wanted to look divine. If you compare Mausolus to our charioteer from Delphi, they both are in the ceremonious drive, in the ceremonious rite, but you see the difference between our Delphi charioteer and Mausolus. The charioteer looks sort of like a Doric column. He is. There's no expression. He's full of purpose. He is very intent. He knows that he is a brilliant winner of the games and as such nearly divine, but he doesn't show it at all. Whereas already in the expression of Mausolus, he's not smiling, he is containing it, but the expression of knowing one's worth is very much there. And of course, his drapery differs vastly from that of our charioteer, and thus we come to a sculpture which was it's considered it belongs to the classical period in the Hellenic period in Greek art, even though at some point the only Hellenic classical period was considered the 5th century, only the 5th century. But then with time, the scholars began to incorporate the 4th century as well, because in the 5th century a female was never ever shown nude. She was always draped. She may have been draped in wet drapery and her nudity shown underneath, but never just outright nudity in one space. This happened in the middle of the 4th century, and the sculptor was one Praxiteles, and presumably the model was one PHRYNE, who was his lover, his wife. We are not sure, but she was said to be a woman of remarkable beauty, and men would just stop in the middle of the street when she walked and gaze.
Was the PHRYNE of Rome named after the PHRYNE of Greece? The PHRYNE who was so beautiful that her lawyer defended her by...
That was not of Rome, that's the same
That's
PHRYNE.
the same PHRYNE!
Yeah.
Ah!
Yeah, that's the same PHRYNE.
Okay.
Yeah, that's the same PHRYNE.
Thank you.
But was PHRYNE Fisher named after her?
Probably.
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 Yes, I mean...
Ooh, the movie's out.
Oh, it is? Can we watch it?
I have to find it.
Okay. Yes, I'd love to see it. But yeah, because it's such a unusual name. Actually, it means something, PHRYNE. I forget. I remember I read something that PHRYNE means something.
But like a good student, my phone is currently off, so I cannot look it up.
Okay, well, put it on and by all means look it up. Again, a copy. But the original was made in marble. Probably the best sort of copy is this one in the Capitoline Museum. There are, needless to say, hundreds of variations on what she's called the Aphrodite of Cnidus, because the Cnidians, the island of Cnidus, the Cnidians considered Cyprus is another island, a number of islands considered that when Aphrodite was born out of the foam of the sea, she landed on that island. Well, Cnidians very much believe that she did land on Cnidus. Again, Cyprians believe that she landed on Cyprus. But there was a temple for Aphrodite, as you see it here. This is the footprint. You were asking about the footprint.
Yes.
It was around Tholos. The Greeks did like Tholus's round structures, except they weren't. They usually were on a smaller scale. The Pantheon in Rome is very different, of course. It's on an enormous scale. And there was the goddess. This is a recreation after a wonderful archaeologist, Iris Love, and this is how she imagined it. There were two entrances into the temple, from the front and from the back. So one could gaze on her frontally, or one could admire the back. And one of the travelers at the time left a very descriptive account of how he felt when he gazed at her back, not even the front. Well, at any rate, so it is possible. So she is. She was the first, really, to cut to the essence, to cut to the fact that the essence of Aphrodite was her remarkable beauty, the remarkable beauty of her flesh. The face, yes, but the face is essentially a classical face that does not express much in purpose, but the body was astonishing, and that presumably how it was carved, and that's why the travelers were in awe. We're not quite certain whether she just came out of the water, whether she's just about to go to the water again. She covers her nether region with her right hand, and looking to the side slightly, the urn and her drapery serves also, of course, as a bulwark. It serves as to hold up the statue, because marble statues, unlike bronze statues that could in fact be attached by their feet and stand on their own, marble statues were very precarious because of their enormous weight. Bronze statues were very heavy as well, but because they were done with the the missing wax technique with the
lost wax
yes,
technique.
the lost wax technique. They were hollow inside and not as heavy as the marble statues, of course. She is Praxiteles with his characteristic, rather pronounced hip, one of the hips that juts up, while on the leg that is a supporting leg. As you see, the arms were added, the face where Praxiteles uses, again, his very characteristic, almost sfumato technique, where the transition from one plane to another is so beautifully smooth that it almost appears real. And in fact, the same traveler talks about the fact that she looked like a real woman, like an ideal, a most beautiful real woman. Yes, okay, so let's go on to our Hellenistic sculptures. This one perhaps was, again, it's a guess, was done towards the end of the 2nd century, and there's so much of classicizing methods about her. She has that very classical face, where emotions are not shown. She has the gorgeous, beautiful torso. So the only thing really that conveys the fact that she's Hellenistic and not classical is this very precarious drapery that is slipping off, and that perhaps would not be done in the 5th century, well, or even in the early 4th century. There's also something brilliant about that drapery, because the sculptor and there's even an intimation that perhaps this was by Praxiteles as well, because the curve, the face, seemed to be characteristic of Praxiteles, but we can never know. And but if that was Praxiteles, well, we know he was a genius, but he must have realized that that constantly having either urns or draperies or a dolphin or a cupid or something else to support the sculpture is tiresome after a while. So what he did, he gave her this precarious drapery that became a column and became a base in itself. So no need any longer for an artificial support, no need any longer.
That's really clever.
Right?
And very sexy.
Right, exactly. Her left leg is very aggressively coming forward in the sculpture. The right leg is behind, and the form, the S curve, that beautiful S curve, is very pronounced again. I mean, the Venus de Milo in the Louvre, it is no surprise that what?
No accident, no surprise.
Yeah, no surprise that she's so greatly admired. Another one in the Louvre, another Hellenistic sculpture. This one is of the Nike, is the Nike of Samothrace, and the 4th century began to carve these Nikes that seem to be landing on the prow of a ship as the ship moves forward, and it seems that even that the Nike of Samothrace was found in a grove in the middle of a nymphaeum with the prow of a ship, and then in front of her apparently was an artificial rock. It's almost as if she was just landing on the prow of the ship in order to divert the ship away from the rock and to guide the ship forward. Now we saw the other night, this is very dramatic. Here, Remember the Paionios Nike from the early 5th century that we saw her? This was the earlier one. She is, well, more classical, shall we say, less dramatic, even though the drapery behind her, as you see, is flying in the wind, and certainly dramatic enough. This is we also saw the possible reconstruction of the statue, and Nike and the drapery is used to embrace her entire right leg, as you see, and to hug lovingly her abdomen, and then it is separated by more drapery, sort of like mausoleus, that the wide swerve of drapery stops and another begins, and then still more drapery comes down from the shoulder where the wings are flying, and then of course this drapery behind her brings together the drama of the goddess herself, and
it's
so
like it's the closest that they could come to sculpting wind.
Right. That's a very good point. In fact, that's a perfect.
You can make fire out of sculpture. You can do a kind of
yes. That's
you
a
can
great
do water.
Point. That's a great
earth,
point.
But not wind. So the closest you can do to wind is
Yeah.
the billowing clothing in the wind.
That's wonderful. Thank you. Yeah, absolutely. Where are we going? We're going here. Okay. Also in the Louvre, she sits right on top of the grand staircase. So you walk into the Louvre, you turn, the staircase in front of you, and you go up to be embraced by the goddess, who tells you you are a victor. And the goddess herself sits on something that looks like a prow of the ship, as you see.
Was that a reconstruction?
They found her in several parts. Yeah, and they had to put the parts together. Yeah. Yeah, and she was more.
No, I mean, like, did I just see an arm?
Yeah. We have this one. This one is Photoshop reconstruction of the winged victory of Samothrace.
Okay, but it's not as if we have those parts.
No, we don't.
Oh, okay.
No, this is one of reconstructions. We have no idea. We don't. I mean, there is an intimation that her right arm went up and the left arm went down, but whether it was bent at the elbow, not bent at the elbow, we have no idea.
Got it.
We don't know. But the Nike herself, yes, she was found in several pieces, and
Wow.
yeah, and put together.
There was a famous story how during World War II, when they were emptying the Louvre to try and hide all the artwork so that the Nazis didn't take it, and they were putting it, squirreling it away in Provence and wherever they could.
Right.
They built a giant ramp to drag her down from the pedestal, and the curator sat on the stairs and cried, saying, "I pray that I see her return."
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Yeah, tearjerker.
Yeah. Oof.
I know. I love those stories. Don't you love those stories? This, of course, this photograph goes so well with Hellenistic Baroque, because that's what Hellenistic Baroque, in fact, wants to convey: the theatricality, the drama, the extravagance, really. And here we see again, here's the drapery that swirls around. Well, perhaps we should go to. No, this is the best still. That swirls this time between her legs. And Sasha, you're so right about this is the best way to portray the wind. Very dramatic, and then disappears, and there's no control, and so there's drapery everywhere, and her wings are fluttering in the wind, and again she's lowering herself. She's still flying, but her feet are just landing, just touching the prow, and the wings are so naturally become part of her body. It is really tremendous the way they did it. Interesting because, for instance, Michelangelo in his ceiling, as many cupids or angels, he didn't really draw wings because he always felt that it's very unnatural for a real human body to have the wings. But you look at this sculpture and they look natural. They look. Unfortunately, we don't have the face, but this is Hellenism at its best, drama at its best, no question about it. Remember that one?
Remember that one.
He has a whole rotunda in the Berlin, in the Munich Antiquities Museum to himself. Well,
so you can look at him from every side. A la Aphrodite of canoes.
Exactly. That's very
For
true.
the ladies.
Yes.
And the gentlemen.
Yes. I'm afraid everybody's looking at him from the front. But yes, you can look at him from every side. Again, Hellenism at its most expressive. Psychologically, fatigue, the face expresses extreme fatigue. He'd been running around the forest all day long. He is the follower of Dionysus. He probably drunk an inordinate amount of wine. He cannot control himself. He cannot do his tricks. He cannot do mischief. He is sprawled, and he is a faun. He's called Barberini faun because again he was in the collections of the Barberini family, a satyr, a faun. They're kind of different creatures. Some of them have goat legs, some of them don't, and they're actually little horns there. I think he does have little horns, and you see the face. A face like this would never be carved in again in the 5th century. Well, the pose like this would never be carved in the 5th century. He's all out there. This is what the Dionysiac orgy is all about, and this sculpture just tells you. If you want to know what the Dionysiac orgies were, here it is. The Barberini faun in the Munich Museum. Hellenism also developed a great interest in humanity in general, in all kinds of humanity, in children, in old people. We don't know the circumstances under which sculptures like this were carved, who ordered them, why, but we know the fact is that they were carved. And they were carved here, for instance, is a drunken old woman. Well, actually, I don't know why they think she's a drunken old woman. And why is she a woman? She could be a man, actually. Again, I have to look it up again. Because we don't see, well, from here you don't see breasts. Of course, her breasts would be sagging. And she's mixing some brew.
I think the outfit is that of a woman.
Yes, maybe the outfit is that of a woman. And all the wrinkles are there. And the expression of despair and poverty, and being at the last leg of effort, life, yes, is very much there. And here's another one. Here's definitely, you see in this case, this is an old market woman. I mean, it could be the same woman we had just looked at. Very poor, but brilliantly done, and with a great deal of compassion. Because in Hellenic sculpture, well, you're not supposed to see any compassion. You're not supposed to see any feeling of the sculptor toward empathy of the sculptor toward his art, because the art, of course, is represented as entirely as life in itself, as honor, as dignity, as balance, as harmony in its own right. And the sculptor himself, in fact, is just a weapon of the gods that creates the most perfect art that could ever be done. Whereas here, the whole relationship, even between the sculptor and his art, changes, and you can feel the empathy. No one can sculpt something like this that evokes so much sympathy and pathos, really, without empathizing with the subject. Oh, I should have, perhaps I should have put this particular sculpture next to the Aphrodite. As I said, the Aphrodite of Cnidus was such an incredible success, and was copied so very many times and in so many variations. But then Hellenism also developed a sense of humor. And this, for instance, this group is actually called the Slipper Slapper group, because there's our Aphrodite, and she has again god Pan or satyr or what have you, and in this case he does have goat's ears and enormous, huge horns, and he's making advances to Aphrodite, and there is her son Eros or Cupid right here, who is kind of a participant. He knows his mother is completely safe. She doesn't. He does not need to protect her, so he's having a great deal of fun himself, stroking the phone's, the satyr's horns right here. Meanwhile, Aphrodite, who has sort of a very regular woman's head, some kerchief on her hair, has actually taken off her sandal, her platform sandal, and is about to slap him with the sandal. So that's why it's called Slipper Slapper group. And it does have, it's very humorous, very funny, very delightful. Obviously does not pretend to be high art, but the Romans loved it, like as something is, Satyr and the nymph. So he clearly had better luck with a nymph than...
I don't know, she doesn't look too happy.
No, exactly. There's no... In fact, if you look at the sculpture from the inside, there's no contact. Yes, she is definitely repulsing him, but he's clearly trying. But what I'm saying is that it went into the next stage after the one we had seen before. Again, we don't know. It must have been sculpted for some Roman. The Romans loved this sort of stuff, and they had their villas decorated with these sculptures. There's the crouching Aphrodite, which is another remarkable Hellenistic sculpture. She's actually copied from pottery. Here, there's the pottery.
Oh wow!
Yeah, there she is. You see.
Yeah.
Done. He's called the Marxist painter. He's known for the so-called Kerch style. Kerch is in Russia, actually, and Kerch refers to the area north of the Black Sea, where many of the vessels were excavated. At some point it belonged to the Greeks, and so the Marxist painter is a key representative of this. Slender, more mannered forms, elaborate decorations. It's not the forceful vase painting of the 6th century, of the archaic style red vase painting, or even before that, the black figure vase painting. This is all much more decorative, and yes, and mannered, as I said. But here she is. Here is a crouching figure, and it is from this figure that our Aphrodite is taken, and it's the same thing as with the Cnidian. This is the beauty of Aphrodite. It is her body. With Aphrodite, it's not her intellect. It's not her. It's not the psychological portrayal of her emotions. She probably has few, but oh yeah, did I say something?
No,
something wrong?
You think Aphrodite has few emotions?
I don't know. Well,
all of human love.
Okay, all right, maybe. Sorry. Well, she's famous for her body, not for her emotions, and not for her intellect. That's all I can say.
Okay.
Yeah, but these sculptors are showing it. That's why even later paintings in the Renaissance. I mean, we don't know who the models were. Sometimes we do, sometimes we don't. But they usually call this sleeping Aphrodite, the Aphrodite of this, Aphrodite of that, because everybody thinks of them. They don't think of them as Athena, or they don't think of them as Minerva. They immediately think, you look at the nude woman, a beautiful painted nude woman, you think Aphrodite.
Sure,
Why?
sure, but that's because she evokes emotion.
Okay, all right.
But I don't know. I just like.
Well, you're right in that.
I don't know. Just to say that the goddess of love does not invoke any emotion is kind of
that's true.
Xing out all of human love. I mean, the whole.
I'm not saying that she doesn't.
The whole Trojan War was because of Aphrodite being chosen by Paris because she offered the emotion of love.
Yeah, but does she have them? That's the question, of course. The emotion of love is tremendous among the human beings.
Her relationship with Ares versus her relationship with Hephaestus is all about how it's marriage versus love. I mean, I feel like Aphrodite's got a lot of emotion.
Well, once you have marriage without love, you will have love without marriage.
Check.
That's usually the case.
Check, but that's what I'm saying. That Aphrodite invokes a lot of emotion. I mean,
I'm very sorry.
I just like antiquity, so I just.
Okay, no, you're probably right. You're probably right.
I mean, intellectually, sure, Athena is the only intellectual, though. I mean, you don't think of Ares and think of intellect. That's why Athena is the goddess of battle strategy, while Ares is the god of war.
Right, but in Greek plays, is there Aphrodite pursuing misdemeanors and well?
I mean, is Ares? I'm just pointing it out.
Thank you.
That you're thinking of Athena as a lawgiver. And
right.
It's true. She is the lawgiver. She's the only female lawgiver.
And Minerva, who is the goddess of...
Minerva is Athena.
Minerva is Athena, sorry.
Right, but that's what exactly, when you try to
Artemida, I was thinking of Artemida.
Okay.
The huntress. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
But her law is cruel. I mean, and not based on any justice. Her law is based on...
Which one?
Artemida.
Artemida.
She condemns a hunter for accidentally seeing her naked, and he's torn apart by his own hunting dogs.
That's true.
So hers is not justice. Hers is vindictiveness.
Right.
Just coming to defend Aphrodite.
Okay. Well, whereas she did like, clearly she had to like the father of Aeneas, the Anchises, yes.
Right.
She had to like him because he was mortal, so... Okay, but, okay, never mind, let's just go back.
Of course, sorry.
Okay, no, you're good. Well, there she is crouching Aphrodite, and she is certainly meant to be looked at from every direction, because every direction offers another beautiful view of that really stunning body. She is like a sort of a delicious fruit. She is she's so lovely and so natural, and the curve and the twist of the body is done with such incredible skill. There are a number of copies, and yet the arms sort of attempt to do what the Aphrodite of Cnidos did. The arms attempt, well, at least the right arm is attempting to hide her bosom, as while the left arm has the same intention as that of as the right arm of the Aphrodite of Cnidos. It's almost as if she heard something. It's almost as if she is perhaps again wants to bathe. She crouched to test the water, heard something. Perhaps a branch in the forest was broken, because the face is that of immediacy, the face of surprise, that not of calmness, trying to continue her intentions to do what she wants to do. The face is very sharply turned, as if she hears something. Yeah, beautifully, beautifully done. And now we also come to portraiture. The Roman Republican Romans are famous for their veristic portraits, and the Romans loved veristic portraiture. They could never equal the Greeks in portraying in the grace or drama of the human anatomy, but they did very well with portraiture. To Romans, the uglier in fact was the better, because the experience of life they wished to see on one's face. But Hellenistic Greeks actually did it, of course, first. Greeks did everything first. And here, for instance, he also, I think, was bronze first, and this is a copy. The Demosthenes, who was one of the great orators and philosophers of Greece. And here he is shown not just the face, seems to be a portraiture face. It doesn't mean that the face looks like Demosthenes. It's more of a sort of a psychological portrait, more than because it wasn't done in the it was done, as you see, in the 3rd century, long after the philosopher died. So it's more of a psychological portrait.
He had the spirit of an ugly man.
I know, right? Well, you also remember Demosthenes. He was horrified by Philip II, by Alexander. He was horrified by that entire Macedonian invasion. The Greeks, in fact, well, the Athenians, okay, they considered Macedonians as barbarians anyway. So he kept making speeches against the Macedonians. Not that they helped him much, but he was in continuous state of despair, and that's how he's showing him. I mean, even these the capped hands is very rare for a sculpture. Truly he tries to convey the despair of the man, and his shoulders are slouched, and his whole person seems to droop down, and the face too is very serious. There are wrinkles on his brow. You barely see the eyes underneath the brow. The mouth is very firmly closed together. This is an unhappy man. He's not a man who wishes to show despair, because he is, after all, a great Greek philosopher, raised, of course, on the Socrates and the Platos and the Aristotles of this world, and he will not show despair. He will not show it in his face. But you almost see the attempt, the successful attempt, to subordinate his feeling to his mind. That very goal that the Greeks pursued in their art, whether on the Parthenon or elsewhere, of an attempt to subdue one's passion with one's intellect, here in this sculpture, in fact, is illustrated very well. Here's another portrait face of a Bactrian ruler and the Eastern ruler, and it shows he's wearing a Macedonian helmet, and it shows the man determined, the man who will not really stop at anything to achieve his goal. Look at the mouth. Is the corners of the mouth point downward in expression of resolve, of a goal, of determination, and the wrinkles in the eyes. Everything about this man breathes power and authority. and I keep forgetting, he also may have been bronze originally. In many cases, particularly with bronze, the eyes, as we had seen in classical art, will be separately installed. Either bitumen would be used for the irises, and either shell, marble, what have you, would be used for the eyes. This is, I'm just showing you an objective portrait face. This is, we don't know who that is, but it's definitely a portrait face. It's not it's not a classical face that does not convey feelings or emotion. There is a person behind it, and one can see the lips are slightly open. There's a degree of doubt. There's a degree of thought. It's an intelligent face. It's a thoughtful face. So all of that is there, and it's a very well preserved face as well. Most probably it was part of a whole sculpture, because the Greeks now begin to they begin to attach portrait faces to almost classical sculptures. But it seems that the Hellenistic Greeks do it with a great deal of sensitivity. The Romans will continue to do it, but of course they'll, well, as I said, the Romans just didn't have the aesthetic feel for an organic whole. So they did those portrait heads beautifully. They copied the anatomy of Greek sculptures. You can, in most cases, you can tell a Roman copy, because it has this deadened feel to it. They just couldn't convey, as I said, that the elegance, the harmony of human proportion, whereas the Greeks could. So even when they did combine a portrait head with the body, it worked. This gorgeous bronze specimen lives in Rome, in Museo Massimo, near the Terminus, and he is done of gilded bronze. He is beautifully preserved, thank God, and his entire self conveys robustness and energy and ability. He perhaps he's not balanced very well, so he is balanced on his spear, that because of his grandeur almost looks like a scepter rather than a spear. And the portrait, the face itself, as you see, is handsome. It's a very handsome face. He's not clean shaven, but he has a 6 o'clock shadow, we say today.
5 o'clock.
A 5 o'clock shadow. Yes, 6. Maybe his is 6.
Maybe his is 6.
Maybe his is 6.
Maybe his is 6.
Because as you see, the shadow is actually etched into the bronze.
That's so cool.
Isn't it?
It's
Look.
so cool.
Well, you remember him.
I remember him.
You just don't remember.
Do I remember him? I drew him on the cover of your published book, Art Travesty, a collection of essays.
Well, thank you very much for this advertisement. That's true, you did.
Of course, the illustrator of your book, drew him on the cover of your book.
That's
with
true.
You standing next to him.
Thank you very much. He's very handsome. He has a small, slightly open mouth. He charming, handsome, clearly very determined when he wanted to be, but also is very capable of emotion and kindness. And the face is almost kind. Look at him.
Yeah, he looks lovely.
Yeah, he is lovely.
I love his eyebrows.
Yes, me too, and the hair.
I just all of him.
The
He
whole
just looks
thing.
like a really good guy.
Yes, and also by now you see they change proportions slightly. They make the head smaller in relation to the whole body, and as a result, the body appears considerably taller. They made the legs longer, the head smaller, and as such, he just looks a stunner all around. And now, is he meant to be looked at from the back as well? No question. Yes.
Every subject here is also an object.
Yeah. Now we don't know. He's called the Hellenistic ruler. We don't know which, who, how, when.
The ruler of my heart.
Yes. Yes. Yeah. Lovely boy. Oh my God! I don't believe it. I didn't include the boxer.
Wait, it's all right. Oh no, my phone's dead.
Oh my God! I didn't include. Hold on. I can do it.
How can you do it?
I'll just do it.
Oh my God! Of course.
I'll do it online. Come help.
Oh yeah. Oh.
Come help. Hold on.
No, it's okay. You know
Let's
how to
escape.
Yes.
All right. I'm doing it
Yes.
presently. Goodness, how could I do that? Seated boxer. Let's just grab any one of them. Seated boxer. Seated. Seated boxer. Boxer. What happened to the seated? It didn't print. Seated. Seated boxer. Hellenistic, there we go.
We hope you enjoy this intermission and take this time to consider which is your favorite Hellenistic sculpture.
Thank you, Sasha. That's fantastic. That's wonderful. Which one? Grab.
Which Greek myth do you wish had been turned into a Hellenistic sculpture? And why don't you take this time to Google and find out if in fact it was?
Oh, please continue doing this. This is perfect. Here he is. We are doing it. And
this is my personal favorite.
paste.
You've already pasted him.
Oh, there we are.
Do you want to include his face?
Yes.
His face is really
It's
good.
spectacular, yes.
He's got the good face.
He's got an amazing face.
Oh, there it is, you see it?
Here?
No.
This one?
That one, yes, that's the one I'm thinking of.
This one or
No.
the cauliflower ear?
No, not the no, that one. No, that's the face,
yes,
exactly,
that's
the
face.
one.
Copy image. And let's go into the... Oh, what happened to I? Here.
Just click on it. There you go.
Here. I can't believe I didn't do this. Let's see. Enter. There's the face.
Perfect.
Yes. Okay.
No, you have to actually hit the paste button. Hit the paste button. There you go.
Okay. And
now close. No.
Save.
Save. Now make widescreen again so that it fills the whole screen.
Right. I'm doing it.
Go. Wait for it.
Okay.
Now close the screen.
Yes. Okay. Thank you very much. Oh my God, I can't believe what a slip. Here's the boy. Let's go to the other boy. Oh,
I know.
a very, very beaten up and battered boy.
He needs a blanket and a hug.
Right. Boxer at rest. He's in the same room with our Hellenistic ruler, and he was found during works, I think in the 19th century, right? He was found maybe even in the 20th in Rome, part of a wall, and he had given various dates again. Anywhere between, whatever, 4th century, 1st century.
But the reason he was found in the wall is amazing because
Remind me.
It was an invasion was coming. One of the any numberless marauding hordes was coming to sack Rome, and someone took the time. It's a very slap patch job, but someone stayed behind as the city was being deserted and clearly.
Oh, right.
Preserved these two. I mean, it's not like they were just
both him and the ruler, right?
Both. They were in the same wall.
So it was in the 16th century. One of those invasions, one of those people hid him, right, somewhere in the
in
walls.
the 16th century. I don't know if it was the 16th.
But then it was discovered in the 20th, I
thought,
think.
what do you mean 16th? I thought it was an ancient.
No. He was known. Apparently, he was known back in the 16th century.
Oh, was he? Okay,
and
right.
Yet, and he was, yeah, and then he was.
Okay.
He was hidden in a wall somewhere, and then rediscovered.
You're saying in the 16th?
No, I mean, the statue itself is a Hellenistic statue.
But I didn't realize that he was hidden in the 16th.
I don't remember. Yeah.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, if you're saying he was known in the 16th century, then
maybe I'm wrong. Okay.
No, you're probably right. You are the teacher here. I am literally your heckler.
No, but you're absolutely right that he was hidden by someone during the invasions. I don't remember when.
I thought
but he was rediscovered.
It was in antiquity.
Maybe. Okay.
But again, if I'm wrong, this portion will be fixed in the description section of the
exactly.
YouTube
Yes.
channel.
Yes. Please push that button. It's called something. See more. See more.
Show more. See more.
Show
something.
more. When we finally figure out when the statue was hidden. It was hidden in Rome, and it was rediscovered in Rome, and now it is still in Rome.
The whole point is this is a great shout out to the people who preserved it, who risked their lives to.
No question.
Yes. Mason it up.
Yes. He's a boxer, and boxing in Greece was brutal. There were no rules. The Earl of Queensberry rules. Marquis of Queensberry rules. Yes, there were no Marquis of Queensberry rules at the time. Boxing was brutal, and people died. But of course, the victor again became godly, all the more because it was so brutal. In fact, these leather gloves that he still has on his hands made the impact all the more horrible. Presumably during training they did wear gloves, as we know them, during training, but not in the ring.
The gloves had leaded weights inside of the knuckles.
Yes.
They basically wore brass knuckles when they fought.
Right, yes. I mean, these were murder weapons, essentially. Yeah. And you see, he is brutally battered. And the sculptor, in fact, introduced copper to show the wounds, and introduced blood. And but even this ear also, it's completely cauliflower ear. I mean, everything is destroyed on him. And it seems that he had just had a fight. So that's why he sits there in such a slumped position, and yet a magnificent body, full of beauty and energy and human determination. All of it is there, but the face here is a mask, and the face presumably also used to have inserted eyes, but the eyes are now lost. His hair, his beard, it's all spiky. This sweat, you can feel the sweat drooping down. The lips are broken. He's just panting with exhaustion. Somebody must be calling his attention because he turns around, or he continues to watch the next battle between the next boxing match. His genitals are actually bound by kynodism, the ancient Greek equivalent to a jockstrap, and that's just as a detail of the sculpture. But this whole sculpture is, the feeling is spectacular. The fact that we have it in bronze, not in a copy, is a blessing. You in that room, in that museum, and again, there are no people in that museum, none. Everybody is in the Vatican. Everybody is in the Pantheon. The Pantheon has a line going around the Pantheon, round and round and round in the summer under the heat. Meanwhile, just go to Termini, to the train station, and there's this museum, Massimo, which has phenomenal art, including Lydia's garden, and it has both of them. It has the Hellenistic ruler and the boxer.
And that's just one room.
And there's just one room, and nobody there. You have the museum to yourself.
Practice your social distancing.
Right. Cool, beautiful marble in the middle of the summer. Perfect. Another one I love from the period is the little jockey of Artemisium. We will talk about Artemisium, in fact, next time when we talk about Alexandrian Greeks and the computer that they fished out there. But today we'll talk about this little cat statue of a horse and the rider. That was a ship sunk there off the shore of the Cape Artemision, and but this was found in pieces again, was put together, and it's part of the horse's tail and belly have been restored. There's a figure of Nike holding a reef in her hands, a common brand for thoroughbreds in antiquity, and it's engraved on the right thigh. And there's this little boy who is holding on for dear life, and there are no stirrups at this point. He's sitting on the horse, and the horse is done magnificently. You can see the flaring nostrils, you can see the forward movement, you can see this little boy, and of course they would take little boy because today's jockeys are also small in stature, because the lighter the rider, the easier it is for the horse, and they're both go together. The
horse, the boy is the same size as the horse's head.
I know,
alone,
right?
like that's it.
I know,
in
right?
ratio to the horse's head, 1-to-1.
The horse gallops with tremendous speed, and the movement and anatomy are rendered with spectacular, just incredible skill and realism. So his tiny, contorted figure and his face, I mean, everything is part of the horse. He is a little centaur. That's what he is. He's part of the horse. He's kind of a baby centaur.
Oh.
Don't you think? I mean, look at him. He's just amazing. He wears sandals. That's it. There are no stirrups. The short chiton, which is blown back by the movement of the horse. Again, the wind is conveyed here. Holds the reins in his left hand and a whip in his right hand. He's whipping the poor horse, but hopefully not too terribly. He's a little boy after all. And hopefully he'll be the winner. And again, when you compare this statue, look at the face. And his eyes too were filled in the original. I mean, the whole face is just concentrated on the victory. And then look at this, and look at our charioteer from Delphi. What a difference!
Wow.
This is where we began, the classic Greek art. And this is the Hellenistic Greek art. And here, yes, it is a ceremonial procession, no question about it, just as with mausoleus. Oh, I forgot to say that the mausoleus, that's why we have the name mausoleum. It comes from Mausolus and Artemisia, well, Mausolus himself. It's a ceremonial. He had already won. He knows he is the victor. He knows he is God. He is driving his horses towards the stage. Or maybe around a ceremonial course to show himself and the horses to the viewers. Whereas this one is in the process of riding, in the process of this tremendous race, and let's hope he wins. And thus we have come to the end of our Hellenistic Greek lecture, and I will see you next week. Thank you very much, and please stay safe.